See? Make sure you hit that bell and subscribe, eh?
This height be the type of shit that keep me up at night. Never short of a breath when I spit my rhymes. Clever forms I express every fucking time. Bring me back to the light when I ain't feeling right. This life, something special when I'm on my grind. Never short of the stress when I spit the mind. But of course, never rest until I fucking die. For the more I obsess and rock the fucking.
Hello, Jokers. Welcome to the circus. I am back with Thursday Thriller at 6 in the fucking morning. Let's start the show.
Oh, Joe, that ain't good enough. Come on, Joe. Thank you, baby. Thank you. You making blood come from my damn mouth. That's what I'm talking about, baby. You gotta make blood come to the mouth. You can't just smack me and don't hit me hard. That's bullshit. When you hit a motherfucker, you hit that motherfucker. Let's kick their ass, motherfucker. Kick their ass. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get ready for some week 3 NFL football for fantasy football. We'll start it off right away with Thursday matchup, Giants at San Francisco. Really, if I can bench my Giants here, I probably would, honestly. The matchup through the air is going to be really tough, it feels like. Daniel Jones is going to be under pressure this whole game. Definitely feels like he's going to make some mistakes. He should still have a floor for fantasy football, so you really have to have like a better option available to you. You know, I wouldn't be trying to play Josh Dobbs over him or anything, but if I had, even like a Desmond Ridder, I don't care if he's facing Detroit. But if I had access to, let's say, CJ Stroud, let's say Jordan Love in some shallower leagues, even if I had, if I could get my hands somehow, maybe do a small low-level trade for Geno Smith. Those are kind of the matchups I would be looking for. Even on Monday, Baker Mayfield against the Eagles, even though the Eagles' run defense and their pass blitz is pretty good, their corners have been getting eviscerated. So Baker Mayfield might be a good play there. And Stafford, if he's floating out there, if you can get a low-level trade for him, he's going to be facing Cincinnati. So those are the kind of quarterback matchups I would be wanting to stream above a Daniel Jones. But if I don't have those options, I'm not trying to downgrade just because of the matchup. Darren Waller, because of the just complete dearth of tight ends, you're going to have to play him. So just temper expectations. On the other side of the ball, it's looking like Brandon Ayuk will probably miss the week. He did tough it out through the last game. Me as a Brandon Ayuk manager, I'm honestly hoping he takes the week to fully recover. And if that happens, Deebo Samuel is a smash play. George Kittle is a good play. You can play Brock Purdy here. The Giants defense has been giving it up. So pretty much all go on San Francisco side of the ball. Next up, we got Colts at Baltimore Ravens. So Indianapolis Colts, Baltimore Ravens. This is the first of the Sunday 1 o'clock matchups. Also, these are technically two of the same teams facing each other because the Indianapolis, or what was it, the Baltimore Colts moved to Indianapolis, and then the Ravens were an expansion team that came back in the early aughts, and then they won a Super Bowl. So that was crazy. But anyways, getting back to fantasy football, on the Colts side of the ball, I want nobody. Maybe Michael Pittman, but it's looking like Anthony Richardson's probably not going to be available. And as much as I love Gardner Minshew, I'm not playing him against the Ravens defense. On the Ravens side of the ball, this backfield is already disgusting. I said Justice Hill, that he's been on the team for 5 years. They like him, but he's never been established as a starter, even with the litany of injuries they've had in the past. So unfortunately, I didn't think he was just going to walk into a full workload starting job, and we saw it. It was actually Gus Bus is probably the back to own right now, Gus Edwards for the Baltimore Ravens. However, just be aware that they also brought back Kenyon Drake recently and still have the bones of Melvin Gordon kicking around on the roster. So unless you're really desperate, I would try to, I say that, but the running backs have already been pulverized this year, so Gus Bus actually seems like a decent option. And then for the passing game, it's Zay Flowers, it's Mark Andrews. I'm not running out Rashad Bateman. Honestly, if you drafted him, you could probably just cut bait on him. Same with Odell Beckham. They'll have spike weeks here and there, but nothing that you can rely upon. It's clearly Zay Flowers is the PPR option. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson had a rebound game. He did have a stinger reported in his left hand. Like, that really matters for a quarterback, I guess, if you're a mobile quarterback. But it turns out it's just a stinger, and he's not on the injury report, so no concerns there. Next, Tennessee Titans at Cleveland Browns. This just sucks. I mean, the Nick Chubb injury is definitely one that I think everybody is feeling right now.
Look how they massacred my boy.
So Nick Chubb going to be out for the season with that horrible left knee injury, the same one he suffered in college. Jerome Ford was the hot pickup on waivers. Literally, I didn't realize it was actually multiple of my leagues. The bid for Jerome Ford was 100 out of 100 fab, so 100% fab dump on Jerome Ford just for Kareem Hunt to sign there 4 hours later. For this week, though, Kareem Hunt probably, I mean, even though he already is familiar with the playbook, it feels like he's not just going to walk in off the street to 15 touches. So I would expect Jerome Ford to see like the starters role and work. But the Tennessee Titans are a tough matchup. At the very least, Cleveland is at home. So, I mean, again, it's with how bad it's looking out there for running backs already. Jerome Ford probably is cracking your lineup. Amari Cooper is in. Deshaun Watson. I want to talk about Deshaun Watson for a second because it feels like, the sky is falling for Deshaun Watson, and he's not the same quarterback anymore, and he's terrible. And look, first, from what I've seen in the games, I don't think Deshaun Watson has been quite as bad as people are saying. So first, for fantasy football, he still has the rushing baseline, which is going to, for the most part, give you those floor games. So even in a game where it was like he's looked bad, he's been averaging something like 15-point fantasy points. So it's not like he's completely tanking your lineup. Now, if you're facing someone whose quarterback has 30-40, it feels that way. But he didn't go out there and get 0-5, you know? The other thing is, Kevin Stefanski's offense is actually one of the more challenging offenses to learn in the NFL. Even if you've been in the scheme like Deshaun Watson has, where obviously he wasn't like firmly entrenched with the team due to like the nature of the trade and the suspension that he had and all the outside noise. We get all that. And it definitely feels like people are preying on Deshaun Watson's downfall on an NFL football field because of what happened in real life and, frankly, his lack of accountability, which continues to be displayed on a football field, even in terms of, like, the way that they lost the game, the way that he pushed the referee, the way that he's been, like, on a block parade for Browns media. It just seems like very similarly to kind of what push people's buttons and turn people off in terms of, the rape allegations. We'll just say what it is. Because of essentially all of those things, it feels like people really want him to fail on a real life level, as opposed to like, just like, oh, we don't like this player. It's like, no, people really, I think they really want Deshaun Watson to fail. I don't know that we're there yet. Obviously, the processing, the passing isn't where it needs to be, the awareness, but it's like he didn't look like Justin Fields out there, who literally was staring down an open receiver and just like cold cocking, could not throw the ball, which is a whole other set of problems. But it comes back to, yes, it's Deshaun Watson, but it's also part of the scheming and coaching and it feels like they'll, now that they don't have Nick Chubb to rely on too for the rest of the season, it does feel like Kevin Stefanski will probably make some adjustments. So it's a very long-winded way of saying that even though it's a bad matchup, they're at home. First game without Nick Chubb. I'm starting Deshaun Watson in this. And on the Titans side of the ball, it's Derrick Henry and nobody else. That's basically rest of season. Like, from what I've seen, DeAndre Hopkins might have spike weeks here and there, but the moment he has even a half-decent week, I would be looking to trade him if you were one of the people that drafted him, because I wasn't. All right, let's move on here. Atlanta at Detroit. This is you're starting Bijan Robinson. You can flex Tyler Algier. It wasn't great last week, but he still had 16 carries, and they're just going to run the shit out of the ball. And, Drake London, I said you could start him last week because it felt like Arthur Smith was going to do it just to, like, mess with fantasy managers. I feel like the matchup dictates that you have to stay in the flames. But again, I'm just going to keep my expectations tempered for Drake London the entire season. It seems like his X-receiver role that I thought might be a little bit more secure in kind of like an A.J. Brown light mold is being split between him and Matt Collins, and that's bad because there's not a lot of targets to split in the first place. So start Drake London tentatively. Again, temper expectations. Bijan smash. Tyler Algier play. And that's pretty much it. I'm avoiding the quarterback, even in Superflex leagues. Like, in Superflex leagues, I would definitely be trying to, it would be really hard, but I would be trying to trade like Ritter and maybe a small bench piece for a veteran quarterback that people aren't so hot on, who's actually succeeding. So, my primary target there would be like a Matt Stafford. And then on the other side of the ball, Amon-Ra St. Brown with the toe is questionable now. Josh Reynolds, who was a hot waiver ad, is also questionable. Seems like he's practicing, though, and should be available. If Amon-Ra sits, I would be looking to pivot off of Jared Goff. He could still have like a decent baseline performance, but Atlanta defense has been better than people expect. And it's also the combination of, because they run the ball so much, they run a lot of time off the clock, and so you just don't get as many opportunities. The one thing that makes me nervous is like maybe Jahmyr Gibbs houses a screen pass, but like if there's no downfield threat, in a sense, with, if Amon-Ra is out or if he's very limited, and if Josh Reynolds is also kind of limited, then it's like, well, now you're looking at like Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond as your main wide receivers. And I really like both of them. I have them on a very deep dynasty team, but they're not who I want to rely on for NFL wide receivers. And then because David Montgomery is going to be out for this game, I did make a lot of cursory pickups of Craig Reynolds. I'm not playing him unless I'm like desperate and I'm staring down like Craig Reynolds or, Devon Achane, who's had no role basically so far. Like, okay, fine. Craig Reynolds should at least see the field and get some work, but I'm hoping he can take over the David Montgomery role. And if it shows this game that he has done that for the couple weeks that Montgomery will be out, then Craig Reynolds, I'll be sliding into my lineup as kind of like a low-end RB3 option. Moving on, New Orleans Saints at Green Bay Packers. This one is disappointing because I would have wanted to have this as like a game of the week, but man, Derek Carr has just been terrible. And I always defended him in Oakland and then Las Vegas. I thought he was a decent, like, average NFL starter, slightly above average even. So I defended him to the point of when people would be like, "Oh, he's trash." Like, that's the thing is, like, I just side rant here. NFL Twitter, and Twitter especially, is just so reactionary. But it's not just Twitter; it's Facebook. It's online. It's social media. The reactionary takes to like one bad game of like, oh, this player's trash and they're never going to be anything and they're a bust forever. And then like literally the next week they have a great performance. Like, I told you this was going. God, I'm so sick of the victory laps on week 2 of NFL football. Like, let's calm down a little bit, all right? But anyways, I really did think Derek Carr would be better. I thought Michael Thomas and Chris Olave could maybe balance their roles a little better. It seems like the last 2 games it's been like all Michael Thomas in the first quarter, bit of the second quarter, and then it's Chris Olave the rest of the game. You're starting both of those wide receivers. Even in the deeper formats, you can probably start Rashid Shaheed, who's had a nice little start to the season. I mean, here's a perfect example. This week, I would start Derek Carr over Jared Goff. I would start him over Daniel Jones. I don't feel great about that one because of Danny's rushing upside. But like a pure pocket passer like Goff, who might not have his top receiver and has a tough matchup against a team that's going to run the air out of the ball, like that's where I might pivot to a Derek Carr if it's available to me. Especially because of his negative performances, it feels like in shallower leagues and 1 QB leagues, he's definitely going to be on waivers. And I think Green Bay's defense is kind of mid, and they have a couple, they still have a couple good players, but they're definitely not a shutdown defense by any means. And I think Jordan Love can keep up with the scoring to incite Carr to have to maybe pass a little bit more, score a little bit more. So definitely starting Michael Thomas, definitely starting Chris Olave, probably starting Derek Carr, depending on my situation. The running backs here, if Kendre Miller is full go, then I'll flex him, but I'm not wanting to start Tony Jones Jr. or a hampered Jamal Williams, even in a revenge game. On the Green Bay side, it's pretty much Jordan Love, and I can't really recommend starting anybody else. Flex option on Jaden Reed in deeper leagues, but it's not something that you're going to be relying on. Jordan Love has succeeded by kind of spreading the ball around, but that's not something that you're going to be able to really target in terms of like trying to get the offensive pieces from Green Bay. So for me, I'm basically limiting myself here to Jordan Love. If I am the A.J. Dillon owner, good Lord, if Aaron Jones is out again, then it's going to be a low-level, gross volume play. Maybe he surprises, but Saints defense has been really good this year. So I would be trying to avoid that. If Aaron Jones is back, I would play him because of his role in the passing game. But for the most part, I'm trying to just play Jordan Love here. I like the tight end there, the rookie tight end Musgrave, but I'm not playing him here. I'm not trying to mess around with the wide receivers. It's Jordan Love or nothing for me. Let's kind of smash through these a little bit faster here because I want to keep this episode a little bit shorter. Houston at Jacksonville. You're going to play Dameon Pierce because you kind of have to. CJ Stroud is a good play here. Nico Collins, I love that. Tank Dell for deeper leagues. You can plug him in. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, everybody. Last week, Zay Jones had not one, but 2 touchdowns where he basically didn't get both feet in, just barely. Calvin Ridley, same thing. He would have had a touchdown if he could have just got both toes down basically, and it was close. So I'm plugging those guys in. Now, the one that I need to cause for pause is Christian Kirk. I did not look this up. You're welcome to do it. If Houston Texans run man defense, then Christian Kirk is a viable play. Doug Peterson said he's better against man coverage than against zone. So double check on what scheme primarily Houston runs, and if it's man coverage and you're a Christian Kirk owner, you can feel good plugging him in. Travis Etienne, he exited with cramps in the last game, and it was a tough Chiefs defense. As long as he's available, he's back in for me. And in this game, I would even be flexing Tank Bigsby, even though he had a big old goose egg last week. If the Jags can get up early, it does feel like they're going to lean on the run here, and we could see some Tank Bigsby get some run. So if you're one of these teams with the running back injuries that's really struggling right now, I would maybe go make, because he's not on very many waivers. He was drafted by a lot of people, but I bet, after holding him for 2 weeks, some of those managers might be willing to let him go for a low-level piece, like a wide receiver 3 or a tight end 2, if you package it right, So maybe make some low-level trade offers on Tank Bigsby if you're a really hurting manager for running back. Now we've got Denver at Miami. Denver defense I thought would be better, but they got absolutely chewed up by the Commanders. And so I think I would be fine to play all my Miami options. Basically, if they start, they play. If Mostert is okay and he starts, he plays. If Tyreek Hill, who popped up with an ankle injury, is fine, play him, obviously. Jalen Waddle has kind of struggled, been a bit more of a background character, play him, doesn't matter. Tua, play him. On the Denver side, Russ is in for me. Cortland Sutton, as like a gross floor play, is in for me. I'm not chasing necessarily the Marvin Mims points. I'd have to be in like a really deep league and not have any other options really for wide receiver. Like if it's between like Marvin Mims and Nick Westbrook-Akine, okay, yeah, Marvin Mims. If it's Marvin Mims or on the other side of the ball, River Craycraft, you're in one of those deep leagues, yeah, Marvin Mims. But otherwise, for the most part, you shouldn't be trying to chase 2 receptions for 100 yards. But I do like Russ in this matchup. I'm kind of just off of the running backs for right now. I think while Javonte Williams is working his way back, he's going to be limited to, it seems like they're kind of cutting him off at about 12 to 15 touches. And until I see that change, I would rather leave him on my bench. But again, running backs have been so brutal this year already that you probably don't have that option. Next up, Chargers at Vikings. This is fire up everybody. The Vikings just traded for Cam Akers, which is the big news. Alexander Madison owners are freaking out, and they should be. But that's for a season-long thing. I think for this week, you're fine to still play Alex Madison. I don't see Cam Akers coming in cold off the street to a new team, new playbook, new coach. And usurping a bunch of carries in this first week. I think it'll take a little bit of time for them to start splitting some really gross reps. But for right now, for this week, I would still play Alexander Madison, pray he has a good week, and see if you can't go target the person that has Cam Akers and kind of consolidate the backfield. See what low-level auxiliary piece that they might have that could help your team, and just be like, all right, why don't you take Alexander Madison? You'll have the whole backfield to yourself. For this week, Madison, Justin Jefferson is every single week. Obviously, Kirk Cousins, you're playing him here. Even in the gross Philly matchup last week, he threw the ball a zillion times and ended up one of the top fantasy options. He also threw 4 touchdowns for the first time in like 3 years. I don't think people realize that. He's only done that like twice in 2 years or something like that he's had 4. So yeah, really crazy to see already that Minnesota is having to just throw the ball constantly, like even more so than last year, which I expected the pass rate to remain the same, which was already at a pretty historic high. Kirk Cousins had over 600 pass attempts last year, but that's going to continue. And the defense is awful. So Kirk is basically every week starter at this point. Justin Jefferson is locked into your lineup. Jordan Addison, his role seems to be increasing, and he already caught that long touchdown, which saved you. So in deeper leagues, you're still playing him. Even in super deep leagues, you can throw KJ Osborne in for a pot shot. He caught a touchdown last week, completely wide open. So, yeah. And then on the Chargers side of the ball, Eckler probably will miss again. Josh Kelly, stay in the flames. It was bad last week against the Titans. It should be much better against the Vikings. So I'm playing Josh Kelly here. I'm playing the wide receivers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I'm not messing around with the other guys right now as much as I love Quentin Johnston. And Justin Herbert, if you drafted him, he's locked in every week for your starter. Smash through these last two 1 p.m. games. We got New England at the Jets. Yuck. Just run away from this game if you can, honestly. I don't even like starting the offensive pieces necessarily for New England in terms of the passing game because it feels like they could just lean on the run and defense. So this is a Ramondre Stevenson game if I've ever seen one. Beyond him, you could maybe flex Zeke in deep leagues because, again, I'm expecting them to run the ball a little bit more, lean on the defense. You're facing Zach Wilson. So, yeah, for me, it's Ramondre, and I'm trying not to play the other options. If I have no other choice, I guess I'm fine with Mac Jones. But I'm not chasing any of the wide receiver production. We've already seen it be a little bit all over the place since Kendrick Bourne went off week 1. On the Jets side, oh, man, you can't play anyone, honestly. Like, you can put Garrett Wilson in your lineup. You can hope that it, like last week with Dallas, that his talent usurps the situation. This one, though, historically has been just bad for the Jets. It's been bad for Zach Wilson. It's been bad news every time they face the Patriots, even when they're at home. Belichick just destroys them. I'm terrified of this matchup for the Jets. If I can bench every single one of them, I would. Even Breece Hall, even Garrett Wilson, it's going to suck. But, like, again, you probably don't have the option to bench Garrett Wilson. I have tons of leagues where, I have a league where all my other wide receivers are injured. I got Christian Watson and Deontay Johnson. Like, you have to start him in certain situations. I get that, but, man, this is going to suck. Buffalo at Washington should be a little bit better. I like James Cook. I like Gabe Davis. I like, obviously, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs every week starters. The tight ends, even though Dalton Kincaid hasn't quite hit, he's seeing just as much volume, basically, as Sam Laporta, who everybody's all hot and bothered about. So I think I would start Kincaid in this matchup in deeper formats. Dawson Knox is still kind of stealing work from him. But I'm starting to grow. I think Kincaid's role could grow by the end of the season. And again, this could end up into another shootout like we saw with Washington last week. And on the Washington side of the ball, I'm staying in the flames with Jahan Dotson. He was a fantasy darling for a reason. Everybody loved him. He has not performed that well the first 2 weeks. Feels like this could be a little bit of a get-right game for him. If it's not, and it's another high-scoring matchup, then at that point, unfortunately, you may need to figure out a way to move on from Jahan Dotson because his role is just being eaten. The fact that it's split between Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and whatever tight ends they're rolling out, and Curtis Samuel is still there taking reps. It's, for me, I like Terry McLaurin because he still presents as the wide receiver 1, but Jahan Dotson, it's been a struggle. I'm playing Sam Howell here, and Brian Robinson, he might end up being like one of the best value running backs drafted this year. He could present as an RB2, RB1 rest of the season. So Brian Robinson is locked into my lineup, and Antonio Gibson, unfortunately, is dead until further notice. All right, Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks. This one is rough for the Carolina side. I want to play Miles Sanders, but I don't know. Something tells me it's just not going to be great again, but you're kind of stuck with it at this point. So Miles Sanders is in. Bryce Young, it just feels like there's so many better options. Like, Seattle is not, the stalwart defense that they were in the past, but it's still a home matchup on the road in Seattle. I don't know, maybe he surprises, but really feels like he's depending on Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo. Mingo saw 8 targets last week, but only caught 3 of them. So it just tells you like the synchronicity is not there between Young and Mingo yet. I'm kind of just out on this team right now, except for Miles Sanders. And, Adam Thielen, I did say he's going to have really gross games like he had last week, 5 for 57 or something and a touchdown. This might be another matchup where it turns into like a gross Adam Thielen week. So in like super deep leagues, you can still play him. On Seattle's side of the ball, loving Kenneth Walker. I'm still holding Zach Charbonnet because literally with Seattle, we've seen anything can happen. If God forbid anything were to happen to Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet to me slots right into the next man up. So I'm still holding him, but you can't play him right now. It's all Kenneth Walker right now. And then the receivers, you're firing up DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Look, this is exactly what my concern was with JSN. His talent is excellent. It's not enough to me to just walk in and usurp DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. To me, a rookie, no matter how good, is still going to be third behind those guys. The fact that Geno Smith is the quarterback, it's not like Geno Smith is Aaron Rodgers here, who's going to support 3,000-yard wide receivers. I like Geno Smith, and he's still doing better than, I expected, considering his entire career up to being in Seattle. And you can start Geno Smith in this matchup. But for me, it's what I was getting back to is JSN is just not a startable asset right now. If you drafted him, it's because he's a rookie and he's going to probably break out later in the year. And so you just got to keep holding him. But I wouldn't play him. Dallas Cowboys at Arizona Cardinals. Good Lord, is this going to be an absolute ass whipping. The Dallas Cowboys defense, literally doesn't even need the offense right now. So my only concern from a fantasy perspective right now primarily has been for Dak Prescott. Because you look at even last week, which was a good week for them, he only had 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, which for fantasy isn't that great. He was outscored by a litany of quarterbacks that, normally in real life he did much better. But the fact was he was some 15th or something in fantasy with a really good stat line. I'd be looking to trade Dak, and I've tried in the few leagues that I have to package him and kind of see if I can pivot to something else. It doesn't seem like anyone's biting. Tony Pollard is the one that, and it was really gross last week. It was super gross. He had 25 carries for 80 yards or something. But the fact that he saw that much volume, and the fact that he's been getting the work he's been getting, that's the one that I was probably the most wrong about this season. I really expected this team, the offense, to crater a little bit and be disappointing for fantasy. I actually a 25 for 80 stat line is almost exactly kind of what I was expecting with no touchdowns and limited passing work and everybody freaking out on the usage of Tony Pollard. That was kind of what I was predicting. But it hasn't really worked out that way. And if the defense is just going to keep kicking the shit out of people, they're just going to keep leaning on the run more than the pass. And that's going to be, Tony Pollard's going to have a really good season, barring injury. So Tony Pollard is locked into your lineup every week at this point. CeeDee Lamb is definitely a play. I'm not in on the other wide receivers. It's kind of a crapshoot anyways, even when Brandon Cooks is healthy, which he was not last week. The tight ends, Jake Ferguson caught a touchdown on 3 of 11, so keep an eye on him, but he's not someone I'm necessarily trying to start unless I'm in a very desperate situation. And then, if I was a Kyle Pitts manager. So on the Arizona side of the ball, it's James Conner, nobody else. You can't you literally cannot trust anybody else. I don't trust Hollywood, even though Hollywood had 10 targets last week and it was 6 for 50 and a touchdown. That's his upside. That's the ceiling. I am avoiding Arizona Cardinals like the death plague, especially against this Dallas defense. James Conner, again, you're forced into it. It's a volume play. I thought it would be bad last week, and I was wrong. So you're with the state of the running back situation, you can pretty much just play James Conner every week. Last of the 4:25 games here, we got Chicago at Kansas City, and I am praying for a Justin Fields bounce back in this game. We need it for fantasy. Like, come on now. The fact, and fans have lamented, it's not just the passing, it's the fact he's had 4 designed runs in 2 games. Like, this is the same thing of what I've always lamented about Kyle Pitts, is that you take a generational receiving tight end and you stick him in a heavy blocking scheme, and then you're like, well, why isn't this working out? Yeah, probably the same thing as taking your generational running quarterback and trying to turn him into a pocket passer, which has literally never worked. Every time we've seen some stupid offensive coordinator or coach try to turn their running quarterback into a pocket passer, it generally fails. I literally cannot think of one time where that was like a successful transition, where they were a actual running quarterback turned into a pocket passer and just stopped running. Like, even Michael Vick, when he was in the later stages of his career and developed into a better pocket passer, was still very much utilizing the run. And it's like, these guys use the run to set up the pass. And when you take that away from them, it's like, you're just limiting his game. And this is just like the next team we'll talk about, but it's coaching. The coaching just sucks. So you're still, though, playing DJ Moore and Justin Fields kind of because you have to, and also because, like I said, I'm hoping for a bounce back here. You're playing the Chiefs in their building, which is very scary in terms of the communication on offense, but I'm hoping that it helps them elevate their game, essentially, and they're wanting to compete with the world champions. And, hopefully Kansas City can get their offense kicked in a little bit, maybe pump this score up, because they've had their own struggles on offense. So Bears side, Justin Fields is in, DJ Moore is in, Khalil Herbert is in for me. It was still a 60-40 split between him and Roshan, so I'm going with the guy getting more of the work until I see otherwise. And a 60-40 split, as gross as that is better than the 33-33-33 split they were doing when Deontay Foreman was also active. So I would prefer that they keep a 60-40 split with Roshan and Khalil Herbert. This just isn't the matchup where I'm trying to take advantage of the Roshan Johnson start. I feel like this is like a Khalil Herbert game because it's going to come down to the starter. Roshan will get his touches, but I just don't. Kansas City's defense has been pretty good. And Kansas City side of the ball is easy. It's Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, nobody else. The running backs, like, if you're forced to, you can start Pacheco, but it's been gross. If you want to take the shot on Jerick McKinnon, you can, but it's been gross. If you want to take a shot on a wide receiver, just pick a name out of a hat, and you'll have just as much chance as anybody else of picking the right Kansas City wide receiver for fantasy football that week. And the last Sunday game, yeah, we are making good time here. This is perfect. Pittsburgh at Las Vegas. Najee Harris. Oh, my champion. How they have hurt you. I am so sick of watching Matt Canada run this fucking offense. Ugh.
His hair, whack. His gear, whack. His jewelry, whack. His foot stance, whack. The way that he talks, whack. The way that he doesn't even like to smile, whack. Me, I'm tight as fuck.
Bro, Matt Canada is ruining my life right now. Everywhere on the internet, I got to argue that Najee Harris is not a bust. He's not terrible. He's not washed. They're like, he's slow. Yeah, look, not every NFL running back runs a 4.25. What the fuck, man? Like, I'm so sick of this stupid-ass argument. If you take a running back like Najee Harris, who is power, just power runs, man, like, I put out a little video, and even in that video, they're like, oh, you're cherry picking. It's like, yeah, That's what everybody does. I took 4 plays. 3 of them were out of shotgun. On one of them, he delivers this killer block, just blows the dude up. The second one, he gets the ball. It's like first of all, the play design is just terrible. Okay, they've got the offensive line, quarterback's in deep shotgun, takes the snap. As he's taking the snap, there's a pulling tight end coming across who's supposed to be your lead blocker to take on whatever defensive end or linebacker is supposed to be coming on the blitz. Okay, so already offensive line, tight ends leaking across to the left. They're going weak side, which is already stupid also because you're going weak side run tends to be more difficult on your offensive blocking scheme. So going weak side run. So now Najee takes the ball, is immediately met in the backfield, has to break a tackle 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then essentially reverse the play all the way back to the strong side of the field and turn it into a 10 or 15-yard run. And people are like, oh, he can't do more than a 15-yard run. Yeah, watch that fucking play. He starts 5 yards behind scrimmage. He has to avoid the guy this way, then come all the way back. He runs 30, 40 yards on the fucking play. The problem is it's such a bad design that he only ends up getting 10, 15 yards out of it. And then I show in the same clip, as soon as they go under center and run more of a single back power running scheme, kind of like what the Falcons do, holy shit, Najee goes for 15 on the very first carry and is dragging a dude with him. No, Najee Harris is not fucking Tyreek Hill. He's not Devon Achane. He's not fucking one of these little speedy guys. He's not even. And yeah, I get it. There's other dudes that are Breece Hall fast, and he's not that either. But what he is a whole ass man. Because this guy, it's Derrick Henry. That's what he is. He is Derrick Henry. You need to give him the volume. And it's in boxing, in a boxing match, if you punch a guy in the body 6 times, yeah, it probably won't do jack shit. The whole point is you're supposed to work the body through the fight to make him tired, so that you're opening, so that when you're getting that body work and he starts bringing the hands down a block, all of a sudden now you can pop that big one. Running the ball with a running back like Najee Harris is similar to body punches in a fight, and you have to stay consistent, even on the runs where, okay, yeah, he got 2 yards there. He only got 1 yard there. That shit happens to every running back. Barry Sanders lost a lot of yards in his day, just as much as he gained them. So, again, it's I'm just so sick of this idea that Najee Harris is a bust and he's terrible. And it's no, it's the scheme and it's the play calling. Now, I'm nervous about that for the rest of the season. But getting all the way back to the matchup for Sunday night, Steelers at Raiders, I'm playing Najee, 100%. He's not coming out of my lineup, and he has a good matchup the next week. So I'm sticking with Najee Harris. And I've seen this before, because in 2018, when Derrick Henry was given the starter role, it was him and Dion Lewis, and Derrick Henry didn't do shit for the first 12 weeks of the season. And I know, because I was so into Derrick Henry. I had him on all my fantasy teams. He was one of my most drafted players, just like Najee this year. And it was garbage. And by week 12, I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, fuck, I finally have to eat shit and drop this guy. The moment I did that, he went off for the next 4 games for the fantasy championships. He had that 200-yard, 4-touchdown game, and then just never let up ever since then. So it's maybe my hope is that Tomlin goes out there and is yeah, let's stop running these shit ass fucking run plays 5 yards, 7 yards behind scrimmage in stupid shotgun formation. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Why are we going into shotgun on 2nd and 10? Oh man. And it's, you know what it is too, is granted it's just Madden, but like I've played with the Steelers offensive playbook like basically my entire life. So I'm vaguely familiar with like the base concepts of what it used to be. And that's why it's like I'm saying, like, a lot of what they used to do was designed around single back power options and power run, which is a lot like what we see in Atlanta with Arthur Smith. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would rather have Arthur Smith as my offensive coordinator than Matt fucking Canada. That's how bad it is. Because then at least I would know, like, okay, well, Arthur Smith is going to know how to run the shit out of the ball. I won't have to worry about coming out of a game where Najee has less than 15 carries. That's what it's like. Literally, like, if you want to have a running back and a defense and a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, technically speaking, you should be running your play calls similarly to how Arthur Smith does it in Atlanta. So, very long-winded rant, but I'm starting Najee Harris. I'm starting George Pickens. Pat Freiermuth, kind of still a dart throw tight end at this point. And, you know, in deep super flex, you can probably still start Kenny Pickett, but there's no viability, I feel like, for Pickett to improve in this super ticky-tack, dink and dunk, shotgun, start you 7 yards behind the fucking line of scrimmage, terrible offense that Matt Canada is running. So, man, I can't fucking stand it anymore. On the Vegas side, as long as he's healthy, Devontae Adams is every single week. Josh Jacobs has had a really rough start to the season, but you're still going to be playing him. And that's pretty much it. Let's just move on. Jimmy G, I guess, like, if you're super desperate, but you shouldn't be at quarterback. Quarterback feels like there's options. Like, you could even start Derek Carr over Jimmy G probably. You know what, Steelers, I will say, though, the Steelers corners are like the one place where it feels like we are perpetually taken advantage of. But our pass rush is just so good this year, and the Vegas offensive line has really struggled. So I would avoid Jimmy G. I would rather play in this next matchup on Monday, Baker Mayfield. So Monday matchup, we got the gross doubleheader again, which is so stupid. I hate this like simultaneous game bullshit. I mean, I get it. There's people that are like double screening, or they've got the YouTube TV. They got both games up at the same time. I do that all Sunday. On Monday, I would rather just like have one good game to focus on. Like, if I could literally like take both of these games and turn this into like Philadelphia versus the Rams, I feel like that would be a better game. So, but what it really is the 7:15 game is Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs, man, Rachaad White's going to have a tough time, but he's been involved enough in the passing game that you're probably still having to start him. Mike Evans is locked into your lineup every week. So is Chris Godwin here, because Philadelphia, their defense, the front seven is excellent, but the defensive backs are terrible. So you got to think that if Baker can get the ball out of his hands, that Godwin and Mike Evans should both have good games. I even like, not as a play, but just as a really deep tight end stash, Cade Otton, just keep an eye on him. If his role keeps growing in this offense, and God forbid anything were to happen to one of those wide receivers, he would definitely be a waiver target of mine, or like if I had the spot on my bench, I might throw him on the end of my bench there. But I'm starting Baker Mayfield. I'm starting Mike Evans. I'm starting Chris Godwin. I'm forced to start Rachaad White, pretty much avoiding everyone else. On Eagles side of the ball, A.J. Brown. If you're one of these people that's like, A.J. Brown has had a bad start to the season, it's like he went 7 for 70 in game one, and then he would have had a touchdown if not for Rashad Penny getting a hold, which took one off the board. And then immediately after, a blatant pass interference where he was about to catch another bomb touchdown. So A.J. Brown is fine. Just keep playing him. It's going to happen. Every wide receiver is going to have weeks where they didn't go off for 20 points. But he's still, if you can honestly, if you can buy low on A.J. Brown, you probably can't. I've tried, and most of the managers I play with are savvy enough to know not to trade him. But if you can, if you're in one of those leagues, hey, take advantage. But yeah, you're starting A.J. Brown, starting Devonta Smith, you're starting Jalen Hurts. Dallas Goedert sucks. You probably are forced to start him where you drafted him, but if he has a decent, like, as soon as Goddard has a game with a touchdown, go look for a desperate tight end manager and see if you can swap Goddard. But then also, like, you got to be able to get yourself like a Hunter Henry from somebody else or something to kind of replace him. But it's like I would literally rather have Hunter Henry rest of season than Dallas Goedert. Our last game here, and then get out because it is 6:50. Break the fourth wall. I actually got to go make my kids lunch and get her ready for school and shit, and take the dog for a walk. So last game here, Rams at Bengals. I just did a big trade in a redraft league. Now in Dynasty, not a fucking chance, but in a redraft league, I am scared about Burrow. His prospects for the next like 4 weeks, and this is a team where started 1-1. I'm not feeling super, even though we're 1-1. It was like we kind of won a gross one in week 1, so I'm not feeling too hot about my team right now. And so I traded Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase for Josh Allen and Drake London, and it's like I get it, Drake London. That's a gross one to eat. But I feel like the upgrade that I got from Joe Burrow with a strained calf, who's going to be struggling for the next like month or so, I got to upgrade to Josh Allen, and that feels really good. And my wide receiver room was deep enough that taking the hit on Chase, who might only be 50 to 75% of himself because of Joe Burrow's calf, like we saw last week, if that happens, like I feel like I won the trade again, very specifically in a redraft league, very specifically because I felt like Joe Burrow was kind of one of the reasons we were tanking so hard, and because Burrow and Chase are, no matter what, they're in my lineup every week. Like it's not like I'm one of those people who's like I start my studs. There's not really going to be a week where I'm like, oh, Joe Burrow's calf, so I'm going to start Baker Mayfield here. It's like if Burrow sees that field, he's going to see my fantasy squad. So it's almost like I'm getting rid of that problem for myself, and I was able to get Josh Allen out of it. And then Drake London, he'll have his moments. I'll plug and play him in my lineup. I don't feel like I have to do it every week. And like I said, I was pretty deep at wide receiver on that team. I don't have it up in front of me, but I have like Mike Evans and a couple other dudes that I'm comfortable with. So yeah, it felt like a good trade. That's one of those trades where the name value and the future, the potential of, when Burrow is healthy and there's doing stuff in week 8 to 10, it's like, yeah, but by week 8 to 10, if I had kept them that whole time, I might be already out of the playoffs. So what would be the point for my team? So you kind of have to, when you're doing these trade evaluations, that's definitely something that you need to kind of foresee is like, yes, these are great superstars and I don't want to trade them, but by not trading them, am I potentially taking myself out of the playoffs so that when they're even available to me, it won't be viable to me? So getting back to the matchup here, on the Bengals side, you're starting Joe Mixon, pure volume. Assuming Burrow is playing, you're playing him. You're playing Chase and Higgins, even if it's the backup quarterback. You're probably playing both of them. On the other side of the ball, Stafford, Puka Nacua. He's the new GOAT wide receiver. You're playing both of them. And Kyren Williams is a smash play now because they traded Cam Akers away. And he's got that whole backfield to himself. Don't talk to me about Ronnie Rivers or rookie Zach Evans. Like, this is Kyren Williams time now. So Kyren Williams to the moon. Puka Nacua Cup. He's going to be in your lineups. Matt Stafford, I would play him here. And even though he's been kind of shitty, I would play Tyler Higbee here because that's just how bad tight ends have been. Tyler Higbee or Kyle Pitts. Give me Tyler Higbee. I made a joke about it, but Kyle Pitts was so bad last week. Austin fucking Hooper outscored him. Yeah. I'm going to let you sit with that one. That's going to be my final nugget for this show. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this was helpful advice for you in some way, shape, or form. If not, hey, maybe we just had some fun. If you did, go drop me a follow. Go drop a sub. Super kick that bell. Get notified for the Sunday live stream. That's going to be really important and cool. I've done them 2 weeks in a row now. I go pull questions from fantasyfootballadvice.network. Make sure you check them out. I pull questions from Facebook. I pull questions from pretty much everywhere. But once we get like more people like joining in on the actual live streams, I will be prioritizing those questions over everything else. So if you have a question that you feel like you really need answered, you got all these million fucking analysts out here that are, a lot of them are too busy this time of year to drop in DMs. I don't give a shit. I got nothing going on. Hit me up. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can even find me on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. Like I said, hit that bell. Join us on the live stream. Catch you all on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes